Can you speak to the issue of COVID denial and delusion amongst family members and friends? That is, somehow if you are a family member or a friend, you are not an asymptomatic and will not wear masks in each other's presence. Hopefully that didn't get cut off. There's the rest of a question that I don't see anywhere here. So how do you talk to people who imagine, I don't even know what the narrative sounds like in your head, but I know.
I'm seeing a very dumb breakdown in conversation.
Yeah.
Which is I think it's the right has a point, which is that how we respond to this pandemic should be sensitive to all of the costs, including deaths that will arise because of lockdown, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And that we are not doing a holistic analysis. We're missing how many deaths will be caused by economic failure, blah, 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 all those things, right? This then results in a rejection of the idea that we should be doing drastic things because the death rate isn't what we feared it might be, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think the death rate is where it's at all, right? So, I saw somebody we respect on Twitter the other day say, the rate of death for kids under 16 is below some very low number. Tell me again why schools are still happening remotely. Right. And the answer is, well, if kids can get it, and they can, and they're going to bring it home, and they will, and somebody else is going to catch it, and they will, and it's going to damage their heart or their brain, then what is the cost of that interaction? Likewise,
so that at least, though, is really complex. Right. So the costs of schools being virtual to both the kids and their social development and the parents and their inability to have their lives is huge. Yep. And the fact that kids themselves don't appear to be getting sick is true, even though all of these other things are true. I'm not sure where I fall out on what I think should be happening, and I think it's different in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. But I can tell you for sure that virtual schooling is a farce.
Oh, it's
a farce, right? So what are we doing? This question, though, is both difficult, but I think a little easier, which is it's not necessarily easier in the moment, but how do you talk to people people in your circle when I finally get to see you, but actually, given that we don't live together and aren't breathing the same air all the time, we either have to stay far apart or mask and be careful, because why is it that you imagine that why have you decided that you're inherently safe for me? That's not your decision to make.
Right.
Right.
So I have been having these conversations, and typically I will take somebody outdoors to have a conversation, and I'll say,
not to beat them up behind the woodshed.
Those are different people.
We don't have a woodshed. That's part of the problem.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But I will take people outside and I'll say, hey, let's have this conversation outside where COVID does not apparently transmit, yet at least. Right. The other thing that I will say when people are like, isn't this mask business silly? I'll say, I think people have it wrong. You should see you should go to the subreddit of people who have tested COVID positive and look at the people who have long-term symptoms that don't seem to go away. Mm-hmm. You should also look at the data on heart damage and long-term brain damage, and you should realize that we don't even know whether you get long-term immunity after you've had this, whether the thing might reside in neurons, blah, 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 blah. And so the point is, you say, here are all of these unknowns. Now the question is, what do we do? It's not clear to anybody, because until those unknowns are answered, we don't know what the costs are. But, it may be that everybody, let's say that half the people who got COVID are going to lose a decade or more off their life.
That's probably extreme, but.
Yep. But we don't know one way or the other.
Yeah.
Could be a larger number and a smaller number of years.
Yeah.
Right.
Seems more likely, but.
The point is, and if you're going to get it every 5 years, because it's going to circulate and your immunity doesn't last, what does that say to us? So there are all of these things. And from my perspective, I don't know how we get to the conversation, which is, let's talk about what we should have done, right? We should have really locked down for a much shorter period of time, right? We should not be dealing with schools coming back in virtual form. We should have taken
6 months later,
6 weeks, and we should have done this properly, and we should have put everything necessary to get highly reliable testing. So the combination of a very intense, brief lockdown followed by very accessible, high-quality testing would have been enough. And the point is, somehow
even absent super high-quality testing, pooled testing. That allows you then, at the end of it, like, okay, what is it? I think University of Arizona maybe is testing their student population this way and actually keeping numbers low compared to like every other college campus that actually has students.
By pooled testing, you mean you pool a bunch of people together, and if anybody tests positive, then you do the fine-grained.
So it's like like everyone being regularly tested a lot, frequently, but every test is like inputs from 100 people.
Yeah.
And you have to have very, very low false positives for this to work.
Yes.
But the false negatives don't matter as much because, they don't matter as much. So yeah, any positive you get from that, then you break it into groups of 10, whatever. I don't know exactly what the protocols are, but you actually can just like really quickly get through a whole bunch of tests this way and rule out, okay, all you guys are safe and you can like still be careful, but you can go about your business.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get past is the sense that what has unfolded is a vindication for the side that wasn't all that worried about this in the first place. Yeah. I am, if anything, more worried than I was because of all the things we don't know and the fact that what we've learned is pretty frightening, even if it doesn't amount to sudden death for people. So the point is, look, I don't really want responsibility for what to do now. I want to say, what should we have done then? And who was saying that? Why didn't we listen to those voices? And what are they saying now? Right? That I think is what we should be doing. And it doesn't amount to, let's end this lockdown already. This was a false alarm, because that's not what happened.